This week, Jamie Moles from Extra Hop and Dixon Styres from CrowdStrike are with us to discuss cybersecurity as a team sport. Then Paul Kelly and Tim Morris from Tanium both join us to talk about practicing how you play in incident response. Finally, in the enterprise security news, blockchain security startups are still raising tons of money, but not in crypto since it's all now worthless. Just kidding. Maybe. Am I? Anvilogic, AppVUX, Sotero, Resourcely, and Push Security all raise rounds. Juicy rumors. Is CrowdStrike buying Orca? Is Akamai getting bought out by a PE shop? We'll talk about it and find out. Or maybe not. Yeah, they are rumors. We don't know for sure. Human and Perimeter X join in a rare cybersecurity merger. Are Azure's vulnerabilities out of control? Zoom brings end-to-end encryption to its cloud phone service. NPM says, fine, we'll add some security. Kaseya's CEO is just telling it like it is, man. The problem must be with you. A robot attacks a child, so maybe it's time to add EMP grenades to your EDC. All that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Picture your team being able to map out the external attack surface as it grows and see the same attack vectors as a hacker does. Most tools out there do asset discovery, but stop there. Enter Detectify. It takes an inventory of exposed web assets and automates vulnerability testing for security misconfigurations, expiring subdomains, and risks in third-party software. Here's the cool part. They crowdsource payloads from leading ethical hackers. It finds bugs you actually want to fix and finds them in time. Start a free 2-week trial by visiting securityweekly.com/Detectify. Go hack yourself.
Companies big and small are using AwareGo's human risk assessment to measure the human risk factor in cybersecurity. This interactive solution allows companies to measure employees' knowledge and behavior across threat vectors such as phishing, passwords, sensitive data, and more. After completing the assessment, CISOs can identify vulnerable departments and roles and improve internal policies or procedures. Visit securityweekly.com/AwareGo to start your free trial. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy Milk Chocolate Day. I'm not even making this up, Jamie. I'll explain what's going on in a minute. This is episode 282, recorded on Thursday, July 28th, 2022. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the Master of Marketing, the Mayor of Mayhem, Tyler Shields. How are you, Tyler?
Milk Chocolate Day. We don't even need to get into the fact that I don't like chocolate. We've had that discussion before. This is not a day meant for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There are a lot of chocolate days.
There are too many.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. We're going to get deeper into this chocolate thing. Also joining us is the Czar of Zero Trust, the Captain of Content, Katie Teitler. How are you, Katie?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. And even better, when I did the prep for these show notes and I realized we were going to have Jamie Moles on for the third time, and for the third time in a row, it was some kind of National Chocolate Day. So we first had Jamie on October 28th last fall, which happened to be National Chocolate Day. Just normal, plain Jane, National Chocolate Day. Then we had Jamie back on the show earlier this year on January 27th, which turned out to be National Chocolate Cake Day. And then, proving there's some kind of conspiracy involving Jamie and chocolate, he joins us for the third time, and it happens to be Milk Chocolate Day. And I don't know who's behind this, but I promise to get to the bottom of it for the sake of Jamie and our listeners. And now, naturally, the more analytically minded folks out there might be thinking there's a lot of different kinds of chocolate, so naturally there's going to be a lot of chocolate days. Is there a chocolate day for every day of the year? And the answer is no, not every day of the year, but there are 37 national chocolate days, national or global or international, like some mix of those.
Holy cow.
Yeah, surely all invented by board marketing staff at Nestle and the Hershey Company. They're not all on Thursdays though, so statistically, it's still kind of weird that we've had one of these every day Jamie has come on, and they get as odd as National Cream-Filled Chocolates Day, Chocolate Souffle Day, White Chocolate Cheesecake Day. There's Chocolate Covered Pretzel Day. December 16th is National Chocolate Covered Anything Day. Like just to make sure we've covered all our bases.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah,
Jamie, do you even like chocolate?
I'm going to lobby for...
No, Tyler doesn't.
Chocolate's gross. I think we need 37 different types of beer days.
I didn't look those up. There's probably plenty of beer days also.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I do like chocolate, I have to say, and I actually grew up as a child a quarter of a mile away from Mars, the Mars factory in Slough in England. So I woke up every morning to the smell of chocolate or Twix biscuit bars being cooked. But how you've managed to pull me on this show 3 times with a chocolate theme is crazy. I'm turning into the chocolate fairy here, obviously.
It's a conspiracy. The whole thing is a conspiracy.
Since I've been doing this, it's the only 3. Since I've been doing this like day of the week type of gag in the beginning of the show, it's the only 3 times chocolate has come up is when you're on, Jamie. So again, we'll look into the conspiracy. We'll get to the bottom of it. As it happens, I was actually born near Hershey, Pennsylvania. So it was also close to where chocolate and candy gets made. All right, a few announcements, and we'll jump into it here. Don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all new episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. Speaking of which, whether you like, subscribe, follow, find a review, write a review on Apple Podcasts, give us feedback on Twitter. However you choose to engage with us, it helps, and we appreciate it. Your suggestions and reviews help make this podcast better. So I love hearing from folks, seeing reviews, stuff like that. So, yeah, please, if you have a moment, send us one of those. We'd appreciate it. All right, so this interview is sponsored by Extra Hop, not chocolate, as you might be thinking by this point in the podcast, or any chocolate manufacturer. Today's topic is cybersecurity as a team sport, and we are excited to have Jamie Moles, Senior Technical Marketing Manager at Extra Hop, with us today. Jamie, how are you?
I'm really good. I'm thoroughly enjoying the chocolate in my cupboard downstairs. And also glad to be back on the show, but also looking forward to going to my first stateside Black Hat next week. I've been to the EMEA ones a few times. I've been on stage and presented a few times. And next week I'm going to be at Black Hat running a competition. On our stand, I'm running a red team, blue team game for people who want to come to our stand and do a little bit of red team exercises, then do a little bit of the blue team side of things with Reveal X, and there's prizes to be won. But of course, I'm just going for the poker.
So very quickly, you said a couple things that caught my ear there. First time Black Hat stateside. It is a little known fact that Adrian actually buys a round for the first timers at Black Hat. For any first timers that are listening, ping Adrian. He buys you free alcohol. That's point number 1. Point number 2. Point number 2 is you mentioned poker at the end. Definitely ping me, Jamie. We'll get together and play some cards.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, lovely. I'm definitely up for that.
And make sure you ping Tyler, not me, because I won't be there. Tyler will.
Dang it.
Yeah, sorry to say I'm going to miss it this year. But we also have Dixon Styres with us, Solution Architect at CrowdStrike, with us as well. Welcome, Dixon.
Hey, Adrian. Happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
How do you feel about chocolate?
You know, I was just thinking to myself, I was up in Boston and we went to Mom and Pop's chocolate cannoli kind of place. Delicious.
Oh, no.
I mean, it just melts onto your mouth. Great day for an old chocolate day, if I say so.
Very nice. Yeah, what's that place in North End in Boston that has all the like marzipan sweets and stuff like that?
The
Is
little
that
Italy
Mike's?
spot. I think that's where I was at.
Oh, Mike's.
I don't know about
I think it's
marzipan, but the cannoli is at either Mike's Pastry or Modern Pastry. They're across the street from each other. Sort of a rivalry. If you're a tourist, you definitely are going to Mike's.
Yep, Mike's was it.
Yeah, Mike's is an Italian North End there with the marzipan is like you see the little hot dog sandwiches and hamburgers and stuff like that. That's all made out of marzipan. All those cute little things that they make. Anyway, we should probably talk about some security stuff. So let's jump into it. Always great to see vendors partnering together, building integrations between products. So obviously, interviewing Jamie from ExtraHop and Dixon from CrowdStrike. That's exactly what we've got here today. So maybe Jamie, why don't you explain to us what you've got for us today?
Yeah, so I'll pull up on the screen in a minute a little demo to show people what we've been working on. But Dixon's actually the man. Dixon's the guy who's actually been working on this integration, certainly from the CrowdStrike side of things, working with our solutions architect people to put together some new capabilities. I'm just the guy who gets to tell people about it and perhaps show it off a little bit. What we have had for a while now, the ability to integrate directly with CrowdStrike and automatically with CrowdStrike to remediate threats when we see them on the network. It was fully automated remediation. The idea behind it was that when we detect a threat on the network, let's say, for example, ransomware trying to encrypt a file share, when we detected it at ExtraHop, we could if you were a CrowdStrike customer and you'd configured our system to do this, we could reach out to CrowdStrike and in a completely automated fashion say, that compromised machine over there, take it off the network, please. And CrowdStrike does a wonderful job of this. The functionality is brilliant and it works so quickly. We speak to them and the device is isolated in seconds, which of course puts incident responders in a nice place to be able to then quarantine. Oh, the device is already quarantined, but then to investigate it without it being a threat to the rest of the network. But of course, we never sit still. We're always looking to improve our capabilities and our functionality. And we always listen to our customers when they tell us how they use our product and how they like to do things with our partners and things like that. And we found out that whilst this capability was of interest to customers and they wanted it, actually what they really wanted was a say in the process. It's become very apparent that customers don't trust fully automated remediation. They don't trust computers to make the decision to knock a machine off of the network for whatever reason. And not every customer has a SOAR platform deployed and therefore have a playbook to work through where we could speak to that playbook, for example, and have that go out and speak to CrowdStrike if the customer pushes a button. So our solutions architect and Dixon got together and planned out a better answer. And that answer is our new capability, which we call push button response, which is quite simply now when we have a detection within our product and the detection checks with CrowdStrike to see if either the offender or the victim are CrowdStrike managed devices, we can now put a button up in the user interface. And I'll show this again in a minute after Dixon's had a bit of a say about what we're doing. We can now have a button in there so that the user can click on that button and say, take that device out. And it's a really simple capability, but it's better than having a computer make the decision. And it means that customers who haven't gone down the path of deploying SOAR in their environment, and there's not a huge amount of people who are doing that from what I've been told when speaking to analysts like Forrester. And in fact, I was having an interview with a Forrester analyst just last week, and he said, actually, this way you're doing things is exactly the right way to do it, because the SOAR uptake is not massive, but the need to do this is strong, and people don't trust computers. So by doing it this way and giving both your joint CrowdStrike and Extrop customers the ability to make the tools work together, but make the decision themselves, it's going to get such huge uptake. Dixon, you were actually working on this with our guys. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I think bottom line, what this integration shows to me really is the best of both of our products and what they have to offer, not only by themselves, but ultimately working together. You think about the visibility endpoints that CrowdStrike gets on the endpoint, the network visibility that ExtraHop has. Those are two siloed points of data. They're not really talking to each other always. And what we're doing with these integrations is letting those two platforms actually talk to each other, letting the CrowdStrike capabilities help on the ExtraHop side, letting defenders from the CrowdStrike side go and investigate more on the ExtraHop side. Both of those pieces working together, ultimately saving time. One of the big things we talk about is in the industry, the speed at which some of these attacks are actually happening, how quickly you can ultimately get breached, right? Some cases, it's less than an hour. You've heard CrowdStrike before. You've probably heard us talk about what we call the 1-10-60 rule, this idea to detect a threat within 1 minute, ultimately empower investigators to respond to that and investigate within 10 minutes, and then to remediate that threat within 60 minutes. And that remediation portion is what we're sharing with the ExtraHop team here with this push button response. And so it's empowering these investigators to not only see what's happening between these two platforms, shining flashlights in two very, very distinct areas, but ultimately gaining the confidence with both of our data sets to make proactive decisions. You don't want to automate that always, as we were just talking through. You don't want to quarantine the CEO's laptops when he's presenting the latest numbers to the board, right? So we actually want someone there that's going to be able to take a look at both of these very, very detailed data sources, use those together, and ultimately make great remediation situations that happen really, really quickly on the network.
Yeah, this is something I've thought about a lot. Anytime I see a company with a product, and they pitch it as having automated enforcement, I wonder if it is, it's not the computer's fault that it's carrying out the instructions, exactly to the letter. The problem is trying to have, a strictly structured rule applied to a nuanced situation, right? Like the nuance here is, the CEO's in the middle of a meeting giving a presentation or something like that. Like that's nuance that ideally the role would need to know, and you'd have to integrate a whole lot of things for it to be able to know that. But I wonder if it's something where, in some use cases, you gain confidence after you push that button a certain number of times, and maybe you do fully automate it. Maybe it's, you're applying it to a guest network or something like that, where the stakes aren't nearly as high for removing somebody off the network. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's, if you think about it, there is a number of ways you can play this game. The way you've just described it is clear. If you had a low priority network, like a guest network, and you started seeing someone on your guest network doing Nmap scans or something like that, you just kick them off. That's not within their right to abuse your network like that. But when you're on enterprise corporate networks with high value users, as Dixon described, the CEO, for example, or high value devices like domain controllers, having a computer decide to knock either the domain controller or the CEO off the network is going to leave you in the position of having to do a lot of explaining. And that CEO is going to want to know, why wasn't a human being involved in the decision-making process? And that's really the issue. Now, there are circumstances where you would want automated remediation. For example, the ransomware scenario. If ransomware hits your networks over the weekend when incident responders are not in the environment, and you can detect with a high degree of accuracy that this machine here is trying to encrypt these file shares, having that knocked off the network automatically, bearing in mind ransomware, a lot of them can encrypt everything within 4 minutes. If you can knock them off in 1 minute, you save yourself a lot of hassle. But the number of use cases where you would want a computer making that decision is very, very niche. It's very, very small. And as you said, they cannot make the kinds of nuanced decision making that a human being can. A human being is going to know factors outside of the computer system that they need to take into account that might determine whether they push the button or not.
And so when you're deciding whether or not to push that button, what is the context that you see around that the analyst sees before they press that button? You know, I assume you have a lot of context pulled in. I don't know if you're pulling in details from CrowdStrike as well and combining it with some of the details that you have, from your own product here. But what are they saying before they press that button?
Let's show you. Let me bring it up on the screen. Let me share my screen, and I'll run you through what it looks like. And there's a few things that we can show you here, not just push button response, but there's something else we're doing at CrowdStrike, which is quite nice. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Oh, by the way, this is our website currently. We're talking about this capability, and we're talking about it as reveal, then strike. We reveal the threats, and then we use CrowdStrike to deal with it and take it away.
I see the play on words there. Very clever.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's a great play on words. So look, I've got a couple of things available on my screen now. First of all, I'm logged into CrowdStrike Falcon. So in here, I can come in, I can go and look at endpoints within my environment. I can see the kinds of devices I've got up and running. I can go and see the status of them and things like that. If I go to the activity dashboard.
Should we just maybe zoom in on the, hit Control plus a few times there?
Yeah. There we go. Is that better? 250% zoom on my 4K screen. That should make things a lot easier to see. And so I'm logged into CrowdStrike. I'm also logged into RevealX 360, our SaaS platform. And it's our SaaS platform where we have this new capability. If I go into the integration screen, you can see we've got a couple of integrations, and slap bang there in the middle is our favorite, CrowdStrike. If I go in and click on the button and configure it, you can see that there's a number of things that we're doing when we integrate with CrowdStrike now. The first one is we're importing Falcon X threat intel into RevealX. And this is a great capability that we get from these guys at CrowdStrike. They're telling us about IP addresses that are a threat to us, domains and host names that are a threat to our customers, and various other bits and pieces. The information that we find, we can send asset information to CrowdStrike. So when I go into the CrowdStrike interface, like I am here, we can see that they have a detection listed here, Falcon Intel via Threat Intelligence on PC1, which is one of the machines in my network. I can click on View Detection, and this will be Falcon telling us about this device, PC1, and what's going on there. You can see Firefox has triggered off, and it's done some nasty things on there. This is us speaking to Falcon and giving it information about the device itself that we're working on, in addition to what they already know. But in addition to that, we've also, wrong screen, we've got the ability to contain CrowdStrike devices from RevealX 360. So this is the new SaaS version of our product integration. And remember, CrowdStrike is SaaS as well. So it's two SaaS tools working together very, very well. What does this look like? Well, let's show you something interesting, or a few things interesting that are going on in the system. So I have, let's change the time range on here. Let's go for the last 6 hours. I have a environment here that has some various interesting things going on. And we have a number of assets in here that are doing things that we care about. I have, for example, inbound connection from a Cobalt Strike IP address. So as an instant responder, I care about that. It's Cobalt Strike, big, scary words. Let's go in and have a look at the detection details. And we can see here, in this case, the device, we've detected this, and we've spoken to CrowdStrike Falcon, and CrowdStrike is telling us this device is not in the CrowdStrike covered install base. So we're not going to do anything. If I go to another one, like, for example, inbound connection from a suspicious IP address, again, this one's not in the CrowdStrike database. So let's try and find something that is. I'm going to go back to detections. I'm going to go to investigations, and I have a threat investigation running in my system at the moment. So Josh Snow, one of our SEs, built this particular investigation up, and you can see there's a whole bunch of devices on the right-hand side that have been compromised in a number of different ways. If I scroll down towards the bottom, the kinds, and you'll see there's all sorts of things going on: data exfiltration, DC sync attacks, outbound FTP, and things like that. This one looks interesting to me: outbound suspicious connection. If I click on outbound suspicious connection, it's telling me that this device PC1 appears to be connecting to something on the outside, and we call it suspicious. What do we mean in extra hop land by suspicious? Simply, we mean that this has been a threat intelligence hit. Now, if I click on this icon here, this will take me to the details of this particular threat intel hit. And you'll see now, in this case, this device is available and part of the CrowdStrike coverage that we, as a customer, have. There's two things we've got going on here. We've got threat investigation, and if I click on the CrowdStrike Falcon link, go open in new tab, pop that up there. This is going to take us directly to that device. So in this case, it's PC1, who's currently online. It's online. Host status is available. And CrowdStrike and us are talking together. But the other things that we've got in here, if I scroll down a bit further, is if we look at the actual IPs involved, you see we're underlining it in red. That's RevealX saying it's suspicious. It's somewhere in Indonesia. If I click on this red camera icon, it's going to tell me where my threat intel has come from. And this is us pulling data from CrowdStrike. So it's telling us that the threat intel is an IP address. It's produced and provided to us by CrowdStrike Falcon. So look, this isn't just push button stuff. We're using their threat intel as well. And CrowdStrike is populating our UI with useful information. So look, here's the threat actor, Mummy Spider. Perhaps Dylan can tell us a bit about that in a minute because it means very little to me. But the malware is Emotet. And what we're seeing here is a downloader that instantiates C2. And if I scroll up, so you asked what the incident responder is going to do about this. They're going to look through the page. They're going to see the interesting things. And then they're going to go, you know what? I don't like this device being in an active state on my network. I want to quarantine it so I can investigate it. Then he clicks on contain devices in CrowdStrike. And in this case, there's only one device to be taken into account. So we click the checkbox and click on containing CrowdStrike. And now you can see on the left-hand side, containment pending. So that we're now speaking to CrowdStrike and say, please take that device off the network. And if I refresh the screen in a very short period of time, that'll come back and say that the device is contained. And if I go to the endpoint information, we'll get the right one first, this host, do refresh. In a moment, this will come back and tell us that this particular device has been contained and removed from the network. So containment pending there. So that takes roughly a minute. In fact, there we go. It's showing us on the screen there, but this device is in the process of being contained or is contained. It's actually a really nice, sweet process. It allows us, as you can see, to manage devices that are a threat to the organization with our most trusted partner, if you like, in this case, the guys at CrowdStrike, who not only enable us to quarantine threats from the network in a way that as a passive out-of-band system we wouldn't do, but they also help us and our customers by providing us with the threat intel that actually does the job as well, which is fantastic. Do you have anything on this, Dixon?
Yeah, very cool demo. The one big thing that I'm kind of thinking about here, I talked about this a little bit earlier, was really just these two different sort of analysis profiles that both of our products have, right? Think about if you only had Extra. Think about if you only had CrowdStrike, what your visibility would look like right there, right? So you talk about the Offender hit, that was a Falcon X hit. Mummy Spider is famous for their Emotet malware. And what we saw here was to reaching out to that C2 domain, that domain setup that's actually sending commands between hosts and between that Emotet, Mummy Spider internal infrastructure there. And so, think about on the extra hop side first, what else I can do with this indicator, right? Can I see what other sort of devices have connected to this domain? Maybe it's some stuff that doesn't even have a CrowdStrike agent on it, like an IoT device. What I'm trying to do as the analyst is actually figure out the initial point of infection, where this is coming from, and ultimately how I can try and stop that from happening again, right? So thinking about on the extra hop side, we have a great visibility to that on the network layer. And I'm kind of interested to see what this would look on the CrowdStrike side too, right? Because now we have this ability to see what's happening at the process level. We see these host details. We see the vulnerable applications that are installed on this host. We also see the host that this one is communicating with. it's a really, really cool picture for an analyst to see all that working together and connected between two platforms, because it just gives them so much context. We talked about the automation piece. The biggest part for me to actually making these decisions is the severity of my action, right? We talked about the CEO's laptops, talked about containing a domain controller. I want to have as much information I can that's available to me to make an informed decision there. And so it's very, very cool to see this all together. And the big thing for me is how quickly this actually gets spun up and running. This isn't something where you're putting any sort of appliance in your network. It's not something you really have to actually make sure is logging or any sort of configuration. It's really just bringing your CrowdStrike API keys over to ExtraHop, and it's set up to go from there. So very, very easy to set up and manage as well.
And I presume that contain with CrowdStrike button, would that take you into CrowdStrike, or does that do the containment from within Reveal here?
So it's all been revealed there. This is just an API call out to CrowdStrike. And so when a customer sets this up, they'll be able to generate API credentials on the CrowdStrike side, and they'll bring those over to ExtraHop to have them imported.
Gotcha.
And so it's actually configured here within the integration screen within the setup for our product. You go in and you can change. Well, I'm not going to change the credentials because that'll break our integration. But you come in here. There's a screen that enables you to enter the API key for your account in the CrowdStrike Falcon platform, and you enter it in there. And then once that's set up and we're speaking to each other, we then share information. So we get the intel, the threat intel from CrowdStrike. We get information from CrowdStrike every time we detect a threat. We go back to CrowdStrike and say, are any of these devices known to you? And that's where you get the integration here. One participant is a CrowdStrike device, or two devices are CrowdStrike participants. So we're talking to each other. It's bi-directional. It's not just us pushing something to CrowdStrike and saying, handle this by yourself. It's a proper bi-directional integration that works very, very well.
Very nice. Yeah, and that's how it should work, right? That wherever you're analyzing this, it shouldn't be a whole, especially something time sensitive, talking about, as Dixon was talking about the 11060. Is that how you say it? 11060? I've heard that before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you are going to depend on something to happen as human speed, you want to make that as convenient as possible with as few steps as possible.
Yeah. And I'd like to kind of reiterate the point I made earlier from after having an interesting conversation with an analyst last week, that we're ExtraHop, and we know our colleagues at CrowdStrike do this as well. We pay careful attention to what customers are telling us and what trends are working and aren't working in customer land in particular. And this is very strongly validated when we speak to analysts and give them our thoughts. And we're very fortunate in that, having good relationships with the analysts, they will often feed back to us their thoughts as well. And with this push button response in particular, the notion that we had that fully automated remediation was not what customers wanted, because they didn't trust computers to make decisions that might knock the CEO off the network, for example. It's absolutely been borne out by our conversations with the analysts, who said, yeah, you've got it right. What I wasn't expecting was, when I spoke to the analyst, I had this notion that the uptake for SOAR, which, by the way, I think is a brilliant technology. I'm a huge Demisto fan, and Phantom is very, very good. And I'm really keeping an eye on Swimlane as well as interesting solutions for instant response. My gut feeling from having spoken to customers was the uptake was not enormous. And it had some way to go. And speaking to the analyst last week, he said, you're spot on. He said, and by providing a capability where your two products can speak directly to each other and give this level of functionality to customers without going through a third-party SOAR, is definitely recognizing what customers actually want and bringing benefit that those guys out there need, without having to deploy more technologies that maybe they would do if they were a larger, a more mature security organization. But we can't just sell to organizations who are security mature. It's our duty to look after the smaller organizations as well. And that's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah, and absolutely. Not every use case needs, a dedicated SOAR platform, to put together a simple integration or simple use case where you just need an action, to trigger an action in another product. And I think this is a great example of that. And you can support both scenarios, right? It's a nice thing about offering an API.
Yeah, and I really think that there's opportunity for us to do further development together. There are some of the capabilities that CrowdStrike has and exposes via its API that we could make use of. If we see files moving across the internal network, for example, we could send details of those files to CrowdStrike and say, what do you know about it? And CrowdStrike could come back to us and say, yeah, that's not good. We say, well, we saw it going to that workstation. Maybe CrowdStrike, you should check that workstation to see if that process is running in memory, and if it is, kill it. So there's I think we've got a great future together as partners, and there's so much we could do together to bring powerful value to our customers. And I think that's a view we share.
Yeah, and on that point, I think that's a great place to wrap here. That was a great quick demo. Jamie and Dixon, thank you both for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and happy Chocolate Day.
Thanks, Adrian. Have a good one.
Milk chocolate. Make sure you visit securityweekly.com/extra hop to learn more. And stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk about better incident response with Paul Kelly and Tim Morris from Tanium.